Hello and welcome to this webinar today. We're here to talk about, can AI improve construction productivity, and what does ChatGPT have to say? And I'm hearing recently that ChatGPT may have more to say soon because it's getting some voice enabling coming. So if we don't know enough about ChatGPT, well, that's hard for me to say today, ChatGPT, then we're going to be hearing more. Anyway. Thank you all for joining us today. We're very excited to be here. If you have any difficulties hearing or seeing us, please send us a chat so we can help you work through those problems. During the presentation, if you would please enter questions in the Q&A tab. We've got some questions from the initial announcement of the webinar, but we would also love to hear your questions as they come up, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. And then we're also recording this webinar today. So thank you for joining. This is great that AMC Bridge is organizing another of these executive webinar series. I'm Jim Brown from TechClarity. I'll be moderating today. I'd like to thank some great participants in the panel. We've talked a couple of times already. We've got Anthony Hauck, co-founder and chief product officer from Hypar, Lucas Manos, IT director and business operations from Ryan Companies, Patrick Murphy, CEO and founder of Togal.AI, and Igor Tsinman, co-founder and president of AMC Bridge. So welcome to all of you. Again, my name's Jim Brown. I'm the president of TechClarity. I focus on researching digital innovation and transformation in industrial industries. We're a research firm that focuses on how companies use technologies, both existing technologies, but also new and exciting technologies, and things like AI, and how those help drive new business value. So with that, let's get started. I'm going to have each of the speakers just introduce themselves a little bit. And Lucas, we're going to start with you. Why don't you, if you can, just share a little bit about yourself, and then what's your company's role in the construction industry, typical types of construction projects. I think probably most people know Ryan, but if you can just give us a little bit of that, and then we'll move across the group.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Thanks for having me. Good morning, everybody. So I'm Lucas Manos. I have spent the last, I would say, 7 to 8 years inside operations with a large national general contractor, traveling around the world, building some of the biggest projects or across the country. Sorry. The last 2 years or year and a half or so, I've been at Ryan. Focused on emerging technology, and as of recently kind of moved over to take that emerging technology flavor and have been applying that to all of our kind of tech stack on our operational sides of our business. So getting all of our programs and products to work together, which is a great conversation about AI. But Ryan's place in the construction industry ranges from everything from capital markets and real estate development into the design. We have a really large team of A&E professionals, architects and engineers that are designing a lot of the projects that we're building. We build them. We even go on to own and operate some of those assets. So kind of all over the construction life cycle.
Thank you, Lucas. It's great to have you. Patrick, why don't we go with you next?
Great, thank you for hosting. Look forward to all the questions in the conversation. So my name is Patrick Murphy. I grew up in a family business called Coastal Construction, based down in South Florida. We do a lot of vertical construction, a lot of condos, apartments, residential, commercial projects. So I grew up working all aspects of that business. Then became a CPA, worked at Deloitte as an auditor for a few years, and then started a little environmental cleanup company in 2010 after the BP oil spill, which then inspired me to run for Congress in 2012. I was tired of complaining and pointing a finger, so I ran for office and served in Congress from 2012 to 2016. And while I was in DC, I was the youngest member of Congress at the time, so I was thinking a lot about the future of work and AI and the future economy we were entering, and how we as a government should be preparing for the jobs of tomorrow. And rejoined the family business 2018 or so, and I've been gone 12 years. And very little had changed in Coastal, in the construction company. And we're blessed to grow. We're in a great economy. We're in a great state of Florida. but same old processes. And I was like, holy cow, what are we doing? We've got to do something. So had the idea to start Togal. And basically it started because the biggest piece of overhead in our construction company, similar to most construction companies, is pre-construction estimating. And the single biggest task within that was the takeoff process, the quantity surveying, where we're constantly bidding on work, and our estimators are coloring for a living, right? They're determining the net area, the gross area, the walls, et cetera, doing all the counts. And that's when the light bulb went off for us that we should be using AI to automate that process. So anyway, originally built the company for coastal, the construction company. As it started working, we got upwards of 97% accurate. We spun it out, went to market last year, and look forward to talking more about AI in the market. So thank you.
All right, thanks, Patrick. Anthony, let's see if we can hear from you.
Yeah, hi, Anthony Hauck. I'm the co-founder and chief product officer of Hypar. I started life out in architecture and kind of took a turn through IT, still supporting AE at a firm called Einhorn Prescott until 2007, when I joined Autodesk on the Revit team. Later on, I was the director of AEC product management in Autodesk, and then started something called the AEC Generative Design Group there before leaving in 2018 and working with Ian Keogh to start Hypar. We're a cloud platform that is focused on generative design, construction, and building product manufacturing. And we draw our customers kind of from across the spectrum in the building industry. We do vertical products on top of the platform for design, specifically space planning right now in a couple of sectors, but we've done bespoke and public AI work for customers like Obayashi and DPR, and other leading construction companies and manufacturers like AliAxis, and a manufacturer in Europe I'm not allowed to name, who works on structural projects. So we kind of span the whole, from early conceptual design to very detailed product manufacturing and delivery. And the platform is open for other folks to also build verticals on top of it.
Great. Igor, thank you again for making these this executive series possible. If you would introduce yourself as well and a little bit about AMC Bridge.
Sure. Thank you, Jim, and I'm excited to be part of this discussion and this very representative and exciting panel. Igor Tsinman, president of AMC Bridge, been in this position for the last 23 years. Have background and trained as a physicist, but switched to dark side of software development, and then started this company, and that's the history. So AMC Bridge is software development consultancy specializing in engineering, manufacturing, and construction. And as of lately, construction became a very big part of our construction tech became a very big part of our business. We work with construction tech companies like Anthony's and Patrick's, but we also work with end users and construction companies proper, like Lucas's. So we're trying to assess both sides of the equations, and lately AI been a big part of the discussion. I wouldn't say it's a huge part of the implementations yet, but it's definitely talk of the town, and I'm glad we have such a panel to discuss and basically go a little bit in depth of what's the future of AI in construction industry. Thank you.
Igor, and I think your comment about lots of conversation and not as much implementation is a great place to start. I'd like to talk a little bit about technology maturity today in the construction industry, and Patrick's comment about not much had changed is a common story. We're hearing so much about AI right now, and a lot of that's because of ChatGPT obviously being sort of in the consumer news. But there are also a lot of very interesting ways that AI can improve performance and profitability. But the construction industry overall still suffers from a lot of inefficiency and isn't really known for a high level of digital maturity across the board. So one of the questions I want to start with is the industry ready for AI? And Lucas, let's start with you and Ryan. how mature is Ryan today, maybe compared to others? And have you embraced digital tools and feel you're ready for artificial intelligence to layer on top?
Yeah, I mean, it's like any other construction company, we have things that we are working on. But Ryan Companies, I have found, always has been really unique in that we have a large team of resident data analysts that have been working for a number of years on kind of making sense of what these outputs of all these digital tools were, right? And these individuals were uniquely positioned in between individual business groups and in between individual products. And they have always been kind of that person that has been responsible from gaining insight from everything that's happening in our business. So with the new emergence of artificial intelligence, we're able to kind of take that to the next level, right? While we always, we're looking to our team members to build new dashboards and build new insights, ways for us to gain insights, we're now looking at AI and its ability to move and connect tools in new and different ways, right? It is no longer a one-to-one correlation that one of our people have to make. It becomes more natural with large language models and natural language processing. We can start to connect things in new ways that we just weren't able to do kind of on that manual basis. So we have a long way to go, I will say, but we have kind of taken that foundation and are building upon it with our kind of digital strategy, digital architecture strategy that we're in the midst of kind of re-architecting our data storage and our data lakes to be kind of AI focused and ready. And the things we are thinking about now, and the things we are building now, and the models we're building now, we understand are just the tip of the spear. And we want to set ourselves up to do the things in the next 3 to 5 years that no one's currently talking about, that here today we couldn't even conceptualize. Those are the things that we're preparing our business for.
Yeah, that's great way to say it, Lucas. I appreciate that. Patrick, how about you? I mean, from a technology provider perspective, are you hearing a lot of demand for AI applications? And I think we probably know the answer to that, but do your customers have enough technology maturity to really take advantage of it yet?
It's a great question. It's kind of funny, some of the reactions, and I think to Lucas's point, we're still, I think, in the early days of tech, and especially AI, where there's a lot of curiosity, where we have a lot of potential customers reaching out to us. Wow, it's AI. Let me see it. I'm curious, and we show them a demo, and just say we're saving them 8 hours of time, and they say, well, but wait a minute, you didn't take my trash out, you didn't wash my car, and you didn't finish the estimate, and you didn't win me the job. And I'm like, whoa, what do you mean? We just, we did, I think, a pretty good job of saving you 8 hours. Isn't that enough? By the same token, though, there's a lot of folks that don't trust it. And they say, wait a minute, I see that you did my takeoff, but let me go look and let me go analyze it. Let me make sure it's right. And do I really take my hands sort of off the wheel and trust it? So it's a funny juxtaposition that we hear with a lot of customers. And I think that's just because it is so early in the industry and in the world of AI, and we're all learning, and I think it's not all created equal. Of course, I think there's some applications that are better than others for AI, and I think even just within our company, with sort of my purview, what I see, there are certain plans that are 100% accurate, that are really, really good. And there's some that aren't quite as good sometimes for whatever reason. And so, I think all of the technology firms probably, sense that and feel that. Even GPT, some questions just don't really have a great response sometimes. So it's early days. I think, like anything, though, you're going to have your cutting edge, bleeding edge folks that are really willing to adopt and work with it, and then it'll trail on from there. But the tech will continue improving, and I fully expect generative AI to have a massive sort of transformational impact on the industry.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Patrick. Anthony, from your perspective, I mean, what have you seen in terms of the underlying technology that companies are layering AI on top of? Is it ready? Do they have enough data that's of enough high quality and enough history to make sense?
Yeah, and I think that's actually a point I wanted to pick up from what Lucas was talking about. I actually think the technology is certainly ready, but it's good, Jim, that you mentioned the state of the data. We did an early project with a firm who essentially handed us a bunch of their projects, really with the purpose of, can you try to do a task that is based on consistency of data in these projects, just to assess if they were ready? And needless to say, probably it resulted in the data was not ready. It was certainly, partially there, but partially was enough to lead it to misleading results. And so, I think, in terms of is the industry ready for AI? I really like to focus on the I. Is any business ready for intelligence? Yes. It's also ready for an intelligence that, doesn't sleep, is ubiquitously available, et cetera. And so I think, between the idea of we want expertise readily deliverable wherever we need it, and that we have this possibility of drawing on existing data to arrive at it, I think we're ready, especially where, and I think, Patrick might make this point, later on, about how AI gives us easy access into this data. Whereas, in the past, you had to have a specialist, perhaps one of Lucas's data analysts writing a query. Now, perhaps anybody can ask a question over a controlled data lake and get a reasonably actionable answer. And I think those are some of the big changes we're going to see. But yeah, I think the industry is more than ready. It's just a question of, is it adoptable quite yet?
Igor, I'm going to give you a couple of options for the question, because I know that we've got some good answers so far. I'm curious about the construction companies, architecture firms. Do they have enough technology maturity? But I know you also work with a lot of vendors and help them with their solutions. So I'll give you your choice. Do you want to talk about, are the vendors ready for it? Do they know what they want to do for their customers? Or, do you think the industry as a whole is ready?
Well, it's a tough choice. But I'd be a little bit more pessimistic than Anthony on my side, because I see a lot of desire to use the new and shiny thing, and especially if everyone is talking about it, and there's always, I've been through it several times, but there's always hope that this particular technology will solve all my problems, as Patrick said, including garbage collection. And the reality is that underlying foundation is always shaky. I just have an anecdote, not necessarily about data, but we have a customer who came to us during the previous hype of parallel computing and said, I definitely need this system to run on parallel computers because the performance is terrible, and this technology should solve it. And we start looking, and sorry, it was just terrible code. And once we wrote it in an optimal way, they did not need the parallel computing. It was good as is, just need to be rewritten. So to a degree, we have sometimes similar situation with AI, when people come into us and say, hey, we heard about AI, it should solve our problem. And we start kind of digging, and it's not even close to be ready for AI. There are so many underlying trivial issues, data incompatibility, data quality, et cetera, that solving them would get them 80% to the goal that they're trying to achieve. So that's my observation, but I'm very optimistic, technically speaking, because I feel like push to AI may simultaneously push to clean up this foundation, to kind of basically force people to look at their technologies and data and processes, and they will find a kind of efficiency where they thought they couldn't, and they needed AI for, but actually there's much simpler solution.
Yeah. Igor, did you tell them that you used AI just to make them feel better, even though you, oh yeah, lots of AI in there.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's
try to be honest with
our question. We'd like to get the audience involved a little bit. We've got a really good, really big group out there. So if we can bring up our first poll, what we'd love to understand is your level of AI adoption for construction. Are we able to pull up a poll? There it is. So if you could just take a second, and for your company, what is your level of adoption of artificial intelligence for construction, ranging from none to, hey, we're looking at it, we're researching, we might have plans in place, or maybe you've taken some efforts, you've got some small projects or some pilots that are going on, or maybe you're one of the few that are using it significantly and have really gotten some significant value out of it. So just give you everybody just a second to think through their answer and put that in. We appreciate everybody participating. Yeah, let's go ahead and bring up the results of that. So yeah, over half are either researching or haven't done anything yet. But I think that if my guess is if we brought this poll up a year ago, that researching would be a lot lower. But we do see that companies have plans and some small projects, and that a small majority of the leaders, that are pushing the edges are using it significantly. So not surprising, it's an exciting area. So let's appreciate you putting that forward. Let's move on to our next question, and I'm going to start again with Lucas on this one because I really want to focus on what problems companies want to solve. So, our research shows the construction industry is increasingly complex for reasons that everybody on the call probably knows. But with that general lack of digital transformation, and technology in place, there's a lot of opportunity for improvement. Are there specific things that you're looking to AI to improve that you want them to solve? And or maybe even before AI, what are the specific problems you would like to solve? Like if you could wave a magic wand, what problems would you solve? And then do you think they lend themselves to AI?
Yeah, I mean, specific to AI, I mean, I can kind of start this in a number of different ways. I mean, any kind of technology we implement at Ryan, we like to focus with the problem. What is it that we're solving? Why would we do it? What value is it going to bring? Because it's going to bring technology debt into the company. We're going to need resources to maintain and manage and renew licenses, and right, it's a new thing we're taking on. We're just not buying a new shiny object that the end user, is going to always enjoy using. There's going to be support. There's going to be all of these kind of burdens that the company has to take on when they go out and acquire a new technology tool. So that being said, I mean, a lot of our conversation thus far has been along the lines of data stewardship and data quality. So specific to AI and large language models, a lot of the things that our group is very excited about is asking 10% less questions, having 10% less data fields for someone to read something on one screen and type it into a box on another screen, right? Those are the things that we're really excited about. We know our data quality is not at the level that we would like it to be to run in these kind of really sophisticated models that's going to take out our trash and solve all our problems, as we were talking about, right? We know we're not there yet, and a lot of it is kind of those missing and inconsistent data fields, and that's where we're kind of putting our attention first. Is let's find new and kind of more advanced ways on alleviating a lot of that burden, that tech burden on our team members, to get them help them use the tools, help them get better data, rather than just kind of mandating and putting a policy in place of you have to fill out 100 user fields instead of 75 because we're going to do this AI play in 5 years. No, let's find new ways to kind of naturally consume the work that they are already doing, and finding new ways to kind of extract the data from that and start building that into the foundation of our model so that we are kind of set up for that. We have those conversations with our CRM tools and our project management tools and our schedule actualization. All of our tools, we are kind of undergoing this kind of concept of, can we automate that? Can we use natural language processing to take a written document and extract the data fields that we're looking for out of it? And those are just really new, unique ways in which this technology is applying, I would say, in the immediate to near future. Some algorithms like that always tend to exist, but this is just kind of a new over-the-top ability for us to extract so much more data out of our natural way of working and minimize the burden to our staff. That's ultimately what all of our technology programs are intending to do, is minimize the burden of our current way of working. If we're not heading in that direction, you know, as I said, we don't want to take on more technology and make it more difficult for everyone else along the way. So.
Oh, thank you, Lucas. And it's great that you mentioned large language models, because everybody's talking generative right now because of ChatGPT. You know, there's lots of different ways that AI can help. You know, I'm going to turn it to Igor, to you first. Do you feel that generative AI will be the primary form of AI for the construction industry, or do you think there are other types of applications that might be either more valuable or more in reach in the short term? What are your thoughts?
So, frankly speaking, I think the generative and especially big language models may not be the first technologies that could be used. I remember, Lucas, by the way, you with some other company showed very impressive presentation of automated inspection, day-to-day inspection using Boston Scientific robots and artificial intelligence combined to consistently check what's going on the construction site. So the one step forward, and definitely brings a lot of improvement compared to person going around and even with the scanner on her or his back. But the next step is how quick can you extract information from that feed? And there's a tremendous amount of work already been done outside of construction industry on analyzing images, extracting useful information, and artificial intelligence algorithms are very helpful in that. And I think this is, and I saw a lot of, not a lot, but some examples of, for example, bridge inspection, or combining drones and scanners and artificial intelligence to produce reports on the state of infrastructure quite quickly. So from my perspective, ChatGPT is a nice shiny thing that we can potentially use in the future, but there's some low-hanging fruits that could be collected using existing algorithms and already existing processes. Because people, I've been surprised how many construction company already using scanning technologies. But so far, not in all cases, but in most cases, just gigabytes and gigabytes of data stored on a cheap drives that is not very well analyzed, and the information just dying there. So from my perspective, image processing and scanning processing is the area where a lot of benefits could be extracted using artificial intelligence approaches and algorithms.
Good. Thank you, Igor. Let's move on to some of the current uses of AI. I mean, I think that you know, people use AI every day and they may not know it. You know, it's my joke is like, you know, hello Siri, can you tell me a little bit about, you know, can you tell me how to use AI? And it's like, well, you just did, right? But are there any common uses of AI that you're aware of in the construction industry? And Lucas, actually, Anthony, I'm going to start with you on this one, and then we'll move to Patrick.
Yeah, I think we kind of see two major classes of things which map onto how AI is used, right? It's pattern recognition and natural language processing. So anywhere that there is a pattern either recognizable or known, and you're looking for deviations from it, and you know, site inspections come to mind. In the latter case, I think you start to see those kind of applications. So A company that eventually, I think, got acquired into Oracle SmartVid was doing safety inspections through cameras. So they were looking for patterns like someone's not wearing a safety vest or someone's not wearing a helmet. And these are things extractable, by pattern recognition from video. So those kind of, patterned activities or patterned records, Mike Lucas is talking about in his databases or in RFIs or in bulletins out to the field. These are the kind of things that someone with experience of decades can recognize that this is the time in the job where I'm going to get 1 million RFIs on the mechanical system, right? And that's the kind of thing that an artificial intelligence can pick up without the intervention of the 30-year veteran. To make it available to all of the project managers, and hopefully, with natural language queries, so they don't have to learn some arcane way of asking the question to get a good answer. So I think, we see those kind of applications wherever you can have a visual or language pattern that's recognized and thereby predict something out of that, whether it's as mundane as, the next word, or as elaborate as time to put one extra person on this project because we're about to get a storm of RFIs.
Great examples, Anthony. Patrick, can you maybe share common uses of AI that you're aware of in the industry? Obviously, one very well.
Sure. So I already mentioned Togal, so won't beat that. But I think there's a lot of opportunity in construction estimating and pre-construction for artificial intelligence. We'll maybe get more into the generative piece of that, later in the panel. But the repeated tasks that Anthony was just alluding to, things like takeoffs. If a human can look at a set of plans and determine what a wall is, what a toilet is, what an electrical socket is, et cetera, then the computer can learn that too, right? And that goes back to data. And the necessary data, how it needs to be trained and all of that. That was one of the big challenges for us in the beginning, was getting just enough data, because you can't go to like Google and go find some database of hundreds of thousands of labeled plans. We had to create that ourselves. So as I think forward of other applications similar to what Anthony was saying, scheduling, there are some companies in the scheduling space, again, looking at previous schedules of previous, buildings, similar, style of construction, and taking those learnings, applying it forward, adding in various variables. AI is very good at taking into account millions of variables that no one on this call could possibly comprehend or remember at any given time. So I think the AI will ultimately be giving much better schedules than humans as it continues to get more and more data and learns. Legal, same thing. There's a lot of talk about how AI is going to disrupt the legal industry at large. It's no different for construction. There are some companies out there already, I think making, some dents in our sector for legal and making that more efficient. We all know there's just a tremendous amount of documentation, especially in a lot of the bigger jobs, and everyone's, CYA, right? And a lot of emails, a lot of RFIs and schedules and budgets and plans and revisions and spec books and tens of thousands of pages on any given job. As much as we'd like, our teams to memorize all of that and read every single page and know it, it's probably not likely or possible. And people move job to job, right? It happens. So the ability for AI to comprehend, to understand that and put it into human terms for simple questions. Hey, what if the job's 10 days late? What are my liquidated damages? Hey, AI, who's responsible for the interior caulking on the 11th floor? What's the appliance package in this unit? All these questions that the human could go and find, but it might take a day or two, or they might have to find, the right department to contact within their company, are now being solved within seconds with AI, because you can upload all of this data in all sorts of formats and just have a conversation with it. So I think all of the efficiency that was alluded to earlier, which is, even if it's 10 minutes of savings throughout the day, that really adds up. So I think there's some cool opportunities that we're seeing out there in scheduling, legal, estimating, and other things that are coming soon.
Oh, thank you, Patrick. One of the things that I think has made so much of ChatGPT popular is just the increased accessibility, right? I mean, you know, you need a browser, you can get to it. But there are other lowered barriers as well. Like, you know, the fact that we've just got these masses of data in the cloud that ChatGPT can access, you know, just pointed at large public data sets, let alone private data sets. Do you think that AI for construction is more in reach because, you know, because of any similar factors, or, you know, what do you feel are the accessibility enablers or challenges? And Igor, I'm going to start with you on this one.
Well, it's yes and no, right? And according to the data to train the latest ChatGPT models, it's millions and millions of dollars. I would not say it's lowering the barrier of entry so much into this particular model. In the same time, for me as a software technologist and application developers, for us it's very important to mature the algorithms and availability of tool sets, and it's definitely here. We have open source and we have licensed tools that are proven to be working, and it's make our job of building end user and kind of ROI tested applications much more feasible, because we don't spend time on infrastructure building, but rather delivering the result. So for me, this is a huge factor in lowering the barrier of entry for us. The remaining barriers are more structural and technology, as Lucas mentioned, and everyone mentioned the quality of data and the kind of disjoint data sets that is very hard to basically combine, or some organizational problems, not to mention financial problems, because if you have already project budget and you need to do something custom, it's very hard to insert this item into already approved budget. So there's some other gating factors, but from my perspective, lowering the barriers, most importantly, going on a tool set and open APIs that are now available for developers so they can deliver on the top of it. And as Anthony mentioned, build the specific applications on the top of the generic platforms.
Great. Lucas, maybe from your perspective, do you feel that AI is more in reach? It sounds like you've been looking at it for a bit. Is it more in reach now? And what are the things that could maybe help it be more in reach?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, as everyone probably on this call could attest to, the technology is there, right? The algorithms in their kind of defined use case, they are being proven correct, right? The takeoff numbers are being proven by the human counterpart as being as accurate as, you know, the human. I would say the entries to barrier are a lot of the people and the culture around, you know, what are these tools going to do for us? And they're, you know, the way we're thinking about AI tools is, I would say, one of two buckets. There will be standalone AI tools that do a thing, whether it's for takeoff or whether your project management application launches a new chat functionality where you can chat your specifications and the specifics of your contract. I would say that kind of the things that we're highly interested and excited about are what happens once those conditions are reached. And the best way I can explain it is, for anyone who's, you know, previously was in like the smart home category where you pull in your driveway and your garage door opens, your lights come on, and your oven is preheated to whatever temperature because this is what you're eating for dinner tonight. That's the way that we're kind of looking at AI. Of it's great for someone to ask, you know, what happens during a weather delay, and the AI system returns back some verbiage from the contract. We want to take it to the next level of, we want to draft the owner notice. We want to automatically insert line items in our schedule tracking the delay. Like, that's kind of the holistic picture that we're looking at here of, yeah, we can have the individual tools that are going to do something for the end user, but to take on that technology burden and start adding more of these tools into our tech stack and portfolio, they need to live much further and beyond just an individual user and an individual tool. They have to kind of have that full technology impact that we're looking for to kind of have that ripple effect. So that's what we're looking at.
Good. Thank you, Lucas. Patrick, I'm going to turn to you too on the accessibility question. What are you seeing as making things easier? What do you see as some of maybe the roadblocks?
I think it's roadblocks time, right? People are busy. They got day-to-day jobs, they got families to worry about and everything else. And I think it's overwhelming in many ways to think about AI. Where do I start, right? What company do I go to? How do I trust that company? So, I would say, who am I to say? But I'm just, if people would take like an hour a week to dedicate themselves to learning about AI in their sector, in their industry, I think it'll pay off in droves for them. Signing up for demos with companies, learning about the space, thinking, for a little while about, with no distractions, about what's the biggest pain point in your company or in your sort of area where you specialize in. What takes the most time? What's that like redundant task that's just driving you crazy? And I would venture to bet there's either a company out there trying to solve it, already solved it, or thinking about it. And if not, you should jump on the opportunity to build that company because it's getting easier and easier to build these companies. And I think to the previous speaker's points already, a lot of this, I would say, has been entirely solved, but is in the process of being solved. There are a lot of great platforms out there addressing some of these issues. It's really a matter of this transformation where the industry takes the time to learn, accepts it, learns, understands it might not be 100%, but as you start working with it, it's going to get better. It's going to be tailored for you. And within 12 months, 18 months, you're going to have a software that's doing a lot for your company and driving better margins.
Good. Thanks, Patrick. Anthony, I'm going to move us to the next question here, but I'm going to start with you. So what advice would you give? I mean, there's such a range of maturity and adoption in the construction industry overall, let alone with AI. What advice would you give customers on how to take advantage of it? And how should they prioritize using AI compared to other initiatives? Like, is this urgent? Is this just we need to have our we need to educate ourselves because it's coming someday? What's your perspective?
Yeah, I think it's best to proxy in, like, how would you train an intern to do a task, right? If you think about your AI as, a particularly eager and not very bright intern, there are a couple of ways to teach people, right? You would say, follow me around, watch what I do, and then do that. Or you would just say, never put a door more than 2 inches close to the L wall next to it, right? So I think when people are thinking about AI, to look at it as how much do you need to something to be learned by example, or how much do you need to find a pattern in something you haven't recognized, versus how much do you need to automate something that you already know how to do. Because the kind of circular progression of, let me show you what I did so the machine can tell me what I do, rather than short-circuiting to just tell the machine how to do it, is something that every AI type project has to consider as to whether it's actually worthwhile to groom all the data to find something that you don't know, which is a good application, or whether you're going to groom a bunch of data just to record something you already know how to do. Right. So I think when people are looking at AI projects and tools, I think what they should consider is this the only way to solve the problem? Would I hand this to a person to try to figure out something new? Or would I just hand this to somebody who knows how to do it? And that might tell you, like, the division between, should we try a procedural approach that is just automated, or do we need an AI approach because we're looking for something that we haven't recognized before easily?
Love the way you put that. Lucas, I'm going to put you on the spot here. What could AI do that would change the game for your company? And I'm sure anybody that's a vendor out there is all ears to figure out if they can be the ones to provide it as well. So.
Yeah, I mean, like I was mentioning, it's the interoperability of multiple tools. I think we touched a little bit earlier on that senior resource balancing. I can see in chat here, a lot of people are talking about labor constraints, both from the craft side and from the management side. I mean, that's not a secret. A lot of, I don't have the statistic in front of me, a lot of senior resources inside organizations are starting to retire. They're thinking about retiring. So a lot of that kind of foundational expertise is unfortunately going with them, and we can do our best efforts on knowledge transfer and best practice databases and lessons learned. But at the end of the day, like those individuals will leave the industry, and they will take with them all of their expertise. And technology is in this new place where previously it was always like the succession planning of organizations to like go out and hire that next generation and keep like putting them underneath to like learn by osmosis. What we're finding is that those resources aren't as prevalent as they may have used to previously have been. So we're looking at technology of how can we augment some of this knowledge transfer. And as Anthony was talking about, it's no longer let's put a person next to this individual so that they can learn how they do it. And it's more of let's teach our systems and our platforms on the things that need to be done, the fail safes, the catches, how to recognize the right patterns, how to take the action that is needed, and can we design our really integrated, sophisticated systems inside of our technology stack to do a lot of that senior resource balancing. So I don't think it's a one technology company question. I think it's going to be the agreement that a lot of the industry has to come together and work together and provide their individual expertise, whether it's they have a really good computer vision recognition algorithm that helps inspections, or it's a AI scheduling tool, or it's a contract consumption tool, right? Those tools are all going to have to work together in a cohesive fashion for kind of the disruption that we've all been talking about.
Great. Thank you, Lucas. I think that's a great way to wrap that part up. We're just about ready to jump into questions. So I'm gonna just give Patrick, Igor, and Anthony just final points, less than 10 words. This is a challenge. What would you say is the largest opportunity for AI to drive profitability in the construction industry? Patrick?
I don't know if I can do it in 10 words, but I think there's going to be 3 inputs in the future of planning, where you're going to input your budget, your address, and your style. And the generative AI will be designing not only the look of the building, but your MEPs, your structure, et cetera. There's enough data and enough history of buildings out there that's within reach. So I think that changes the game for all of us.
All right, and then with automation, it goes out and it 3D prints the building. That's my I'll add on to that. Igor?
Well, I see quite a few opportunities, but I still big on the combination of reality capturing and analysis of that reality. It could be safety, it could be maintenance, it could be planning, it could be all above. I think components of this are in place, like drones, relatively cheap devices to capture reality, and now AI to process it. So I'm very big on that. My preference, I guess.
All right, Anthony?
For me, it boils down to make it easier to make the right decision than to make the wrong decision, and thereby get better buildings rather than worse buildings at the end.
All right, that was the closest to 10 words, so I'm going to give you extra style points for that one. Lucas, I don't want to leave you out. Did you have anything you wanted to add, or should we go to the Q&A?
Go to the Q&A. I think a lot of good things were said.
Excellent. Okay, we're going to jump to the Q&A. We've got some great questions. We're not going to be able to get to all of them, but we're going to get to as many of them as we can. And you're also going to see on the Q&A slide, there's a QR code. If you have specific questions or projects or something that you need some help with and you would like to get some information or a contact from AMC Bridge, you can reach out directly by scanning that QR code and filling in the form. It was nice of them to make that offer available. So looking through all of the different questions, what a great panel. I'm going to ask one that came in earlier because I think it's so important. And this question is about, can AI help construction industries achieve sustainability goals like net zero? Patrick, let's start with you on that one.
Oh, not to give away too much, but we're developing a automated carbon calculator, basically. So obviously, once you have your takeoff, you've got your bill of goods. We've linked up with several agencies that have aggregated almost 3 million building materials and building parts that have a EPD or a carbon footprint associated with those materials. So basically, what the user will be able to do is optimize the lowest possible carbon footprint for that building based on the design that was given, with millions of material options out there, and the computer will optimize all those choices. Now, the user might, want to, I don't know, a green marble instead of a black marble because it was sourced locally, and they can make those changes. But the AI will be able to start automating that. So as we all know, with carbon calculators, it's time consuming, it's difficult. Another great task of AI of aggregating all this information out there, sourcing and helping to apply it. So that's one way that I know about because we're working on it, but I'm sure there's other great ideas.
Great. Who else wants to jump in on that one?
I'll say we've seen manufacturing customers who have also done their own internal carbon impact calculations, and they've had us incorporate those calculations right into their configurators that we make for them. So I like what Patrick's talking about, because I know there are companies out there aggregating enormous amounts of this information. So I think that's one important thing, and I think probably the next step is methodologies, because of course part of the carbon footprint of your project is also going to be how far do those materials travel, right? What's the overall efficiency of operating that building, which is going to be 80% of your cost in the future? How much is that attributable to energy consumption that might otherwise be saved if we changed out the glazing, for example? And I think the exploration of these kind of options against individual material performance, but also as whole system performance, is what's coming.
Fantastic. I'm going to ask another early question. Can we as an industry share organized data sets to help move the industry, help the industry better adopt AI? And I think that's an excellent question, given what you're saying about aggregating data. Igor or Lucas, maybe one of you want to take a shot at that, or?
I can.
Are you ready to share all of your data with the rest of the industry?
I mean, I could tell you, my legal team hopefully doesn't hear this. I mean, I could tell you, sure, I'll give you all the data in the world. It's not going to mean as much to you as you think it will, because someone still has to aggregate it and clean it up. My data tables and my gold tables and the way Ryan is storing data is going to be very different than the way someone else stores data. So it really is it's an exercise worth exploring. It's something that we've considered and we've been talking with others about. Is how do we share it? How do we have mutually beneficial goals, right? How does it not turn around and bite us all in the backside, as we're all worried about, our legal departments are all worried about? I think there's a lot of questions there. I think it is for the greater good of the industry. But me, giving you a raw SQL export is probably not going to do as much for you as maybe you might think. There's a lot of context. There's a lot of nuance in our data architecture versus someone else's data architecture. So if a common platform emerges, I personally think it's going to probably be we'll see a lot of that in the PMA space. The project management administration tools are kind of charging in that direction of kind of being that great consolidator of all of their kind of customers' data. But that does get back into the terms of use and terms of conditions that our group is interested in, is how do we contribute to this, but then you're going to build a better, more advanced, more sophisticated product on it that ultimately I'm going to have to pay more for the privilege of using that tool. So it is a really kind of nuanced question that the more you get into it, it's a fun question to try to solve.
Who wants to add in on that? Igor, you're leaning forward there, so maybe.
Well, in our practice, I haven't met a customer who is not concerned about privacy of their data. Let's put it this way. And despite all this talk, that's going to be a big hurdle in creating such a huge data set, for example, as ChatGPT as in kind of on the public web, right? This one of the advantages of this model is they have such a big data set that they can train on. And when we're talking about industries and segmentation of company by company, it may present the obstacle to create similar scale and similar sophistication of the model.
I mean, I would also hesitate to sort of ladle the blame on a hesitant industry because, you know, ultimately a lot of the firms who are working for owners don't actually own that data. There's a rare owner who doesn't write, like, I even own the cocktail napkin sketches you do, right? So in which case, you know, there's really kind of an owner impetus that has to be there too. Now, I think we're going to see a couple of stages in this. You know, we've got aggregators, as Lucas has pointed out, like Ben 360, Procore, and those are not just aggregators, they are normalizing functions, right? And so I can foresee that there will be AI capabilities increasingly emerging either on those platforms or connected to them. And ultimately, there's going to be another platform on top of those that aggregates data from multiple sources and normalizes it one more time for AI sharing, but it may actually depend all the way down onto the owners of projects to offer those permissions, not necessarily the contractors and designers who are coming in on them.
I'll just add something I was talking about this weekend with some friends. As generative AI starts to draw plans based on thousands and tens of thousands of plans that it's, you know, been trained on, we're going to see a similar fight that we've seen playing out in Hollywood right now with the strike, where architects and engineers say, wait a minute, I own that. And owners say, I little piece, that little design, right? That was mine. I did that, right? And who knows where this all goes? I think there's industries, you know, that are ahead of us, but we're going to see that same kind of thing in our industry, I believe.
Yeah, and people, you know, patenting their likeness. I mean, brings up a lot of good questions. We've got a great question here. It's a two-part question. Is it foreseeable that AI will take on the role of designing or detailing components like rebar? Patrick, I think you mentioned everything, not just rebar. But then the follow-up question is, how can we go about training AI models to work with something like AutoCAD data? It could be BIM data, it could be Procore, and develop the necessary engineering logic to support such a task. So it's a big question, but are we seeing it really, you know, AI really taking over the design role? And if so, how do we train it to do that?
I'll just say 100% that's going to happen soon, especially things like rebar and mechanical and plumbing, where there are certain ratios and math assigned to why there's a certain amount of rebar. It's not a guess, right? There's a reason we put a certain size and type of rebar in a building, right? It's an engineering ratio. That's kind of easy for AI once someone takes the time to program all that. Now, the human will still look at it and approve it, but you're going to start to see those layouts very quickly. Rebar, mechanical, HVAC, electrical plans, all of that.
Igor, that brings up a question for me. Does that have to be AI? You mentioned earlier just some good algorithms and code. What you know, does all of that design have to be generative AI, or can it be some other?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. And you don't need a prediction. You just need a kind of layout done by the rules and bylaws and everything applied, right? So in my experience, it's not necessarily generative AI, but still machine learning and similar techniques could be applicable and very well applicable. And I also actually want to say that DXF is one of the few standards that actually ubiquitous across the industry. So that may be one of the data sets that will be first used to train AI to do some of the stuff we just mentioned. And,
you know, I actually think some of this stuff is more interesting, less on the generative side and more on the guidance side, because some of the things you can do with data is you can take the highly structured, you know, regulatory environment or, you know, best practices in, say, ward layout in hospital projects or something like that, and that can be encoded, right? The interesting thing where AI would come into play would be to compare what you're doing as a designer to the ideal, and then start to tell you that either it could be better, or you are coloring outside the lines and this is going to be a regulatory problem. And I think those kind of surfacing of deviation from pattern that the thing understands and is much easier to train, but to let the human make the judgment about whether we're going to break the pattern here and it's okay, or whether, oh God, I really got to tuck this back in, or whatever it is. I think that's a really interesting application of this stuff, to compare what we're doing to what we should maybe be doing.
Great. Lucas, we're at the top of the hour, but I want to give you a chance to answer that. What do you think about is AI going to start taking over designing, or?
For sure, for sure. I mean, my question I will pose to the group is, what year do we think is going to be the last AISC steel manual, right? Those are a set of rules, they're a set of codes, they're a set of things that we get trained in school to follow this book, and then that's what our engineers and architects, you know, in other spaces are drawing from that book, that code, right? So when do we take all of the knowledge, all of the parameters inside of that book and build it into our tools, where, as Anthony said, you're allowed to color outside the line, but it's going to tell you it's not structurally feasible, it's going to cost more, you know, it's going to be harder to construct. You know, that's where these tools will really start coming into play here. So
yeah, and we actually just had a question about codes and standards. That'd be another one that would be a really great application. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. We are out of time. I would just like to thank the panelists for great answers on this, and thank the audience, all of the people that participated and joined in today, and the people that asked questions, great questions. Thank you so much again to AMC Bridge for really putting this executive series together. Thank you for including me. And you know, feel free to hit that QR code if you want to learn more, or if you've got some specific questions for AMC Bridge. They would love to follow up with you, and they will also be following up overall with answers to any of the unanswered questions. So thank you all. Everybody have a fantastic day, and again, really enjoyed your time.
Thanks,
Thank you. Thank you.
thanks, everybody.